afternoon. Hello. Thank you very much for being here with us in this panel. I think the topic has been introduced. So just to warm up our discussion, I'd like to show you some numbers on the impacts of financial crimes around the world. A NASDAQ study of 2024 on crime reported that 3.5 trillion funds circulated illegally in 2023. That represents 3% of the global GDP that year, with a very substantial amount. When we talk about losses arising from fraud and scams in 2023, they amount to $485.6 billion. So this proves that numbers are really substantial and that it is important to fight financial crime. Showing you something about Brazil, and we know that all of us every day have contact with this topic, but during the first semester of 2024 in Brazil, there were 4,600 attempts of digital scams hourly in Brazil. And that is something that caught our attention because they are very substantial numbers. And we know that fraud, money laundering, scams are not new topics. They've been present for a long time. But what we've been seeing in the past and recent years is a growth in numbers and sophistication, the advancement of technology, globalization, especially during the pandemic, we were able to see this leverage and this technological advancement. They lead to more sophistication and an increase in these frauds. Today, a criminal or a fraudster does not have to be in the same country or on the same continent, or they don't even need to speak the same language as their victims. If they have a notebook and internet access, they are able to scam different people in different places at the same time. And that becomes a great challenge to prevent and combat because of the sophistication of these frauds. It is also important to talk about the criminals, that they unite, they form communities, and they exchange information and, let's say, good practices on how to scam people, how to take advantage of vulnerabilities and gaps within the financial controls and in the organizations in order to be successful in these criminal conducts. We know that the advancement of technology, AI, and generative AI, fraudsters and scammers have used these technologies and tools. So in the deep web, we see this a lot, but also on the surface internet, we have the GPT fraud, for example, that are tools that are shared in the underground in order to be successful in fraud and scams. And also, as I said, technology brings this sophistication to fraud and scams. And with the use of AI, especially the Gen AI, there's this personalization of fraud. It's not a generic fraud or a generic scam any longer. They have these robots, these bots that are monitoring the internet in order to guide the scams and frauds. And we know that with the use of deep fake and the use of AI to imitate images and voices, these frauds and these scams are very sophisticated, and the people receive these calls as if they were from someone from their family with their voice asking for money, and it's very hard to fight this. It's very challenging, and financial institutions must
to be ahead of these criminals. Artificial intelligence, Gen AI, automation, machine learning, nothing is ignored, or this cannot be used by financial institutions to fight against this crime, attempts of money laundering. I'll leave this part for Fernanda. She will talk more about it with interesting pieces of data about the use of technology to fight against frauds. A point that I would like to bring to your attention is the collaboration of financial institutions among themselves. The same way that the criminals are there, collaborating in communities, sharing tools and suggestions on scam and fraud, financial institutions as well must act in this way, the same way, jointly, and also with the authorities, public agencies, to help and fight against financial crime. And about it, Central Bank in 2023 implemented the provision number 6 that is enforced in the end of 2023, stating that financial institutions must share among themselves data of fraud attempt. Identifying a fraud attempt or a real fraud, the name of the holders, the account, data used to receive and transfer money, and other data should be shared among the financial institutions to prevent this from happening again in different institutions with different instruments for this money laundering crime and fraud. And the final point that I would like to bring to your attention is about sharing information in internal areas of the same company. We saw that the operations of fraud prevention and money laundering, they were not so integrated, that they operate in silos because their interests were different. And of course, interest is always to fight this financial crime, but with different points of view. And we see that this transformation is real. There is higher collaboration internally in financial institutions, with Bacen Central Bank reinforcing audit and revision, checking and understanding the treatment of data in financial institutions. And I pass the floor to Lia. She has practical example to share with us and to know more about data treatment in Banco do Brasil. Can you hear me now? Yeah. We test the mic, we leave, and when we go live, things go wrong, but now it's okay. I have broken the protocol. Let me break it again. It was not in the script, but you know, I'm so pleased to be in a panel just with women and in a pink stage. When I arrived here, I said, that's wonderful. It's a great joy to be here with you. And we rehearsed, we dedicate a lot to this topic. I hope we are going to bring lots of information for you. And it was very nice, Elisa, when you mentioned this point about ChatGPT, FraudGPT, and others. We are in the era of fraud as a service, the same way that we were thinking about the evolution from open banking to open finance and so on and so forth. The fraudster is not standing still. And generative AI has brought this easiness for fraudsters. We have lived in a world that we never suspect. It's not easy to suspect on phishing because it's personalized. And I would say it's almost hyper-personalized. So how many presentations we have heard about hyper-personalization and the need of talk to the client, the way they need to be treated. The fraudster is also observing that. So we really need to evolve, of course, in our processes, and I do not mean bad things in order to demotivate you. We have always experienced the advance of technology, investing on technology to fight fraudsters, and we are still investing on it. And Elisa has mentioned another important point, that was the provision number 6. And in reality, this joint provision number 6, CBN and Central Bank, it was a gift for fraud prevention areas. And why am I saying it was a gift? All of us, we had this need and we were looking forward sharing information. And this provision formalized what we did already together informally. So this provision number 6, now I do not know if you were part of a panel before this, stating the National Alliance to Fight Fraud. This is an alliance in association with FEBRABAN and the Ministry of Justice, with a lot of entities as participants, and the idea is to have work in 5 years so we can fight more efficiently against fraudsters. We have 2 examples of information sharing. And this is more and more important because look at this graph. The line on the top that is in yellow, I don't know what color you see, but the top line shows the amount of frauds and schemes. And the bottom line, the amount of fraud. And you ask me, what is the difference between fraud and a scam? A scam is the customer themselves does the transaction with their device, with their mobile phone, in their geolocation, normally with their password, with their Face ID. Everything is the clients in the transaction. And we are talking here about transactions. The person buys a car that does not exist. The person buys a piece of land in the middle of the ocean. And that's the idea. And I bring it real cases, actual cases. They really happened. And how can we separate this in our daily activities? Imagine how difficult it is. We need to share information. I'm going to repeat this quote all the time. I really advocate information sharing and gathering among fraud prevention areas in all the financial institutions. This will make us stronger, and I do believe that. Talking about credit cards now. Fê will talk more about this and her experience. We have the issuer, the establishment, the client, and the holder and the credit card name. If you are not aware of all these boxes, you just have one piece of information in this chain. Either your institution is in the full chain present, or you are just an issuer and you just have the information of that client. Do you screen it just with your client's information? That's not possible nowadays. And how can we have all this type of information? We really need this provision number 6, bringing market solutions, and we also need all the type of information so we can separate what is a scam and what is a fraud. And a fraudster induces your client for a certain transaction. And you see here, it was their suggestions to bring. You see the quote, it's easier to fool people than convince them that they were fooled. We take longer, we take minutes, and sometimes days, and sometimes months to prove that client that this person is in a fraud. They were frauded in a false investment. How many of these clients were frauded? That is the false lawyer. It takes us a long time so we can realize this. Lia, just a piece of comment. We'll talk about sharing information among industry. We'll talk about issuers, credit card names, and holders. I believe there are pieces outside that ecosystem that is financial that are really relevant, and it's important to mention them. Let's talk about telco, let's talk about social media. Great part of the fraud starts in social media. They are outside the financial ecosystem. So we see the importance of bringing data to make our capacity of detection even higher, minimizing the impact of this fraud, just on this sense. That's perfect. Excellent, your point, because we forget about it and we need to remember it. And Fernanda has mentioned something nice with a nice material about FEBRABAN can help us to prevent fraud. And I'd like to share one more piece with you. This information we searched in the Brazilian Yearbook of Public Safety and Security. You see that Elisa mentioned some information at a world level, topics that fraud is relevant in the country's GDP. And here we see that this data is from Brazil. Fraud every 16 seconds in Brazil. This is statistics so painful. And in fact, a scam. We never return the money back to the client. There is no impact in my business. It does, because when the person suffers fraud, they lose their belief. And we really need to show the clients that security is a very important asset in our institution, so we can really keep this client in our institution. I mentioned about credit cards, PIX, but there are other transactions that the client has every day, and we need to be together with them, follow them up, providing all the necessary support. We really need to get to know our client better, and we need to make a difference what is fraud, what is scam, to share with them. Most of the times, these people are being victims of fraud. And one more piece of information, I pass the floor to you. We observe 2018 up to 2023, a growth of 92% in the amount of logs of fraud and scams in Brazil, together with the pandemic and the sudden way we need to become digital overnight, and also the opportunity of that fraudster. Not to extend my comment and leave time for the other participants here and also for Q&A session, I'd like to pass the floor to Fernanda. There is one more thing. I'm sorry, I forget. Information sharing, we have mentioned a lot, but it's very important. I'd like to highlight one more topic, the integration inside and outside the institution. We talk about information sharing. I was part of a presentation yesterday. We talked about this need of exchanging information, partnership public and private, but I'd like to highlight the importance of having alliances insourced, especially in the areas money laundering, fraud prevention. They need to be united, not on the same structure, that's not necessary, but united. When I say united in processes, people and services, we really need to have a full integration. And then I highlight another area that is also important to be united, cyber. There is no cyber and fraud. What we experience, cyber plus fraud. Remember that in the beginning we mentioned fraud as a service. So, and when we gather everything at home and outside the company, and when we have the support of market solutions with several pieces of information supporting us, we can really create a proper control to provide good services for the society in general. Leah, if I may comment something, I know we are going to pass the floor to Fernanda, but very briefly, this topic about integration, internal areas, especially money laundering and fraud. crime is together all the time. So most of the times, an attempt of money laundering is connected to fraud that happened before and vice versa. So this integration is fundamental in the prevention process as well. The financial institution must be aware of this in their daily activities. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go ahead, please. This point is very valid. Operational cost that you save because you treat an alert twice. One is prevention and then money laundering. But this point is super relevant. My role is to bring a little bit the solution of providers helping us in this context of information sharing and contribution in this challenge that we face of connection that goes along creating a bridge between areas with a single solution, but is also a creation of a bridge among financial institutions. When I arrived at FEBRABAN, I have always worked with fraud prevention in financial institutions. I arrived and I said, this is a need. We cannot ignore all the millions of data, trillions of transactions that we process yearly, not generating a network to help each other and help our clients, not working just the data concentrated inside the financial institution. That's not simple at all. You need to create a connection bridge. When you share data, you must share data that will help the receiver of the data to take the best decision in a reliable way. A piece of data is just a piece of data. I am a statistician. We are on a stage of innovation with women in tech, 2 statisticians here sitting with you. So nice to see this, but I am a statistician. I say a piece of data without a context is nothing. So, the providing companies have the responsibility of supplying information and intelligence that will help institutions to take the right decision that is meaningful, not generating more loss than benefit. And when we say, how can we generate data and intelligence that will bring value, generate reliable action? There are 3 main challenges. The first challenge is the context. When we talk about fraud prevention, Lia said, we have 2 main scenarios. We have scam and fraud. If we see Resolution 6, we have the situation that Fernanda reported fraud in Lia's company. Who is the fraudster? Does it make sense to say that Fernanda is the fraudster? Does it make sense that I say that her institution is the fraudster? Maybe not. Both were victims of a scam. If I place Lia's institution and I sue as a negative blacklist, I have a negative impact of an entrepreneur that is trying to make a difference in our economy. So the impact could be very big if we use this piece of data without context, without intelligence. Tempestivity. When we talk about sharing data, back to the revision 6, until we share this data with every other financial institutions, this trade is off. It's not there anymore, working, and they do not receive transactions anymore. You need to understand, you need to be proactive more than reactive. This helps you to take the correct decision. Either you stop if it's really a fraud, or you enable that retailing continue the transaction. Lia works with the strategy, placing rules. We want to protect the client all the time. The client is a victim. It's in the commercial institution using the credit card and a suspicious behavior. You deny the transaction. You do not know that purchase behavior. But maybe if you know that purchase, all the network of Brazil credentials, they have a profile that is safe and as constant, then the transaction is authorized and the client can continue the transaction in a safe way.
fazendo chiado para vocês?
Does it make a noise for you?
É mais para mim, então.
Oh, my headset is
E o
making a
último
noise.
tema também
And the
que entra
final
muito em discussão é o
topic
tema de
is
privacidade.
privacy.
E esse tema
And
não
this
é só um tema
topic
aqui
is
no
not only a
Brasil.
topic
Acredito que
here
a
in
gente já
Brazil.
está
I
mais
believe
evoluído
we
nesse
are
contexto de
evolving
compartilhamento de
in
dados.
data
A gente viu
sharing.
recentemente,
We
agora
have
em
seen
junho,
recently
em
in
UK,
June
na Europa,
in Europe,
foi lançado o
they
novo
launched a new
PSD3, antes era o
PSD3, it was
PSD2, que é aquele
PSD2
método que envolve a questões de
with
autenticação
the
na Europa.
authentication
O
method
nosso
in
3S,
Europe is
mas
our
agora eles
3DS,
lançaram
but they
novo.
launched a
E o
new
que eles batem
version
muito na
and they
tecla é realmente
highlight
essa questão de
the
compartilhamento de
aspect
dados
of
de maneira
data
segura.
sharing in a safe
E
way.
esse é outro tema
And
que a
this is
gente tem
another
que também
topic
ter,
that
né,
we
em
must
contexto
bear
quando a
in
gente
mind
pensa
when we
nesse sentido
think
de
about
colaboração.
collaboration.
E para, né, resolver todos
And in
esses
order
três
to
pontos,
solve the
esses três
three
principais
points,
pontos,
these three main
qual é a
points,
solução? Não
what
tem
is
como a
the
gente deixar de
solution?
fora, é a
We
inteligência
have to
artificial.
consider
É a
artificial
inteligência
intelligence,
artificial
artificial
vai fazer com que a
intelligence
gente
that will
consiga
help
trazer
us to bring
para
a
aquele dado,
context for that
que vai fazer
data
com que a gente
and
responda
also
aquilo
respond
na
to
latência de
that
uma
in the
instituição
latency
financeira,
that
ali
a
no tempo de
financial
POS, quando você está
institution
fazendo
needs in
uma
a POS
transação, e
time
de maneira segura,
and in a safe
né?
way,
De uma maneira ali que você não
in
está
a way that you are
comprometendo os
not
dados.
compromising data.
Eu vou entrar, tá, pessoal, numa parte um
I will
pouquinho mais
talk
técnica.
about the
E
technical
assim, temos um
aspect,
desafio. Como
and we
você
have a
trabalha
challenge
hoje a
ahead of us.
inteligência
How do you
artificial
work
de
artificial
maneira
intelligence
segura,
now in a
de
safe
maneira
way, in a
responsável? Essa é uma
responsible
discussão.
way?
Então, se a gente vai
This is a
pro
discussion.
AI Paris
If we
Summit que a gente
see
teve em junho, se a
AI
gente vai para
Paris
esses
Summit
acordos
in
agora
June,
de
if we see these
AI
agreements of
responsável, a
responsible
gente fala
AI,
muito sobre isso.
we
Não é
talk
só
about it,
sobre utilizar a
not only
inteligência
about the
artificial.
use of
Hoje, o
AI.
diferencial da
The
inteligência
differential
artificial
of
é
AI
utilizar
now
de
is
maneira
its
segura.
use in a
E
safe
como
way.
trabalhar no
And how can we
processamento de
work
dados,
in
no
a
modelo
data
de inteligência
processing, in a
artificial de
model
maneira
of AI
segura.
in a safe
E aqui eu
way?
quero trazer
And
realmente
here
um
I'd
case,
like
como que a
to
gente
bring a
conseguiu
case,
fazer isso
how we
dentro da
achieve
FITS.
this
Como que a gente
in
conseguiu gerar um
FITSI,
case
how we
para
generate a
compartilhar,
case
né,
to
dados entre as
share data
instituições,
among
gerar essa
institutions,
inteligência de maneira
generating
responsável, sem
intelligence in a
medida, com contexto,
responsible way,
sem
with a
afetar
context
e sem ir
without
contra essas leis de
impacting
proteção de dados e a
the
privacidade dos
GDPR
dados.
and data
Hoje a gente está
privacy.
usando
We are using now
uma
a
técnica, né, de
technique
modelagem
of
estatística de
statistic
AI que a
modeling
gente
of
chama de
AI that we
aprendizagem
called
federada. O que
federated
significa?
learning. What does it
Que a
mean?
gente cria,
We
tá, para
create
cada um dos
for
nossos
each one of our
clientes
clients
modelo com
a
seu perfil
model
de
with
dados,
their
sua
data
base isolada,
profile,
sem a
isolated
necessidade de fazer
database
esse cruzamento
without
de dados.
crossing data.
A gente tendo esse modelo
If we
criado para
have this
cada um dos
model for
parceiros,
each one
treinado,
of the
testado,
partners
a gente
trained and
coloca isso em
tested, we
produção.
place it
E
into
quando chega um dado de
production.
uma instituição
And when we
financeira, a
have a
gente acaba
financial
processando
data, we
ele nesses
process
três
in
modelos
these
de
three
maneira
models
separada, sem ter
separately,
a unificação,
without
sem dizer que a gente
unifying,
tem esse
without telling that
compartilhamento.
we
E
share
a gente acaba
data,
fazendo o
and
agrupamento
we
desse score
group this
para dar o
score
melhor
in order
resultado.
to have the
Isso
best
faz
result.
com que a gente
And
tenha uma
this
segurança,
brings
que a
safety,
gente seja
security,
inclusivo, né?
we
A
are
gente fala muito de
inclusive,
modelo
we
enviesado,
talk about
tá?
biased
Então,
model.
talvez se uma instituição não
Maybe
está
if an
trabalhando de
institution is
maneira
not
correta
working
aquela
correctly,
resposta que
that
influencia no
response that
nosso treinamento desse
influences
modelo,
the
a
training of the
gente ainda
model,
tem esse
we have
balance, né, o
this
balanceamento dos
balance,
scores
this
das outras
bias of the
instituições.
score
Isso
from
tudo de
other
maneira segura.
institutions in a
E
safe way,
ajuda, se a gente
helping
pensa em
if we
fraude,
think
golpe,
about
principalmente, a
fraud
gente pensa
and scheme, we
no
think
escoamento
about
desses valores.
the flow
E
of
ele nunca para no
values,
Brasil.
and it never
A
stops in
gente sabe, tem
Brazil.
golpe do Pix, ele sai de
We
uma
have a
conta,
pig
vai
scheme,
para outra
leaves an
conta,
account
vai
to
para
another
outra conta, a
account
gente
to
não
another
tem tempo de
account.
parar.
We do not have time
E
to
muitas
stop
vezes ele chega no
this,
exterior.
and it reaches
Quando
abroad
você pensa
sometimes.
nesse
When you
modelo,
think about
você
this
também se
model,
adapta a
you
padrões
adjust to
internacionais.
international
Tá? E
standards.
você consegue aplicar
So you
isso,
can apply
principalmente
it,
no ambiente de
especially
cloud,
in a
né,
cloud
para diversos
environment
mercados.
for
E
different
também
markets,
pensar em
and also
trabalhar,
think
né,
about
a repressão do
working
crime,
crime
do
repression,
crime financeiro de
financial
maneira
crime
global,
in a
que é
global
realmente hoje
manner.
uma tendência.
That is a trend right now.
Eu vou passar rápido com vocês
Very
aqui o resultado.
briefly, I am going to show you the results. We are working like this in collaboration,
Isso aqui é um resultado de
and this
teste
is
que a
the
gente está
result of a
fazendo
test that
com
we
cliente
run
brasileiro,
with a Brazilian
tá? E esse
client.
primeiro
And
teste,
this
a
first
gente teve aí
test, there
resultado
was a
de uma
result
detecção acima
of a
do que já era
detection
detectado de
above
4,1
the
milhões,
previous detection
tá?
for 1
E não só
million,
isso, a gente teve uma
and
melhora
also
na
an
aprovação.
improvement in the
Que a gente está
approval.
preocupado aqui com o
Our
impacto
concern
social.
is the
A gente
social
não quer
impact. We do
prejudicar o
not want
cliente,
to
não quer
damage
prejudicar,
the
por exemplo,
client
comércios que
or
estão iniciando, que
retail
estão,
that are starting up, and we do not know, and they are damaged in this context. And there is a gain in approval rate. That was the idea initially of a final message. I believe that artificial intelligence, we know that is the vaccine, as there is solution, but it also brings concern how to use artificial intelligence in a responsible way. And if I may complement, you see how much important information that Fernanda has brought. And you highlight the ethical use of AI. The fraudster does not have ethics, not even legislation, not compliance. Our challenge is even bigger. We need to invest on technology, but not only technology. AI alone is not going to make a difference. We need share information, we need qualified people to work in this world of fraud prevention, and we need to raise the awareness in our clients and general population to prevent this fraud. And just sharing, we have run out of time, but I'd like to say something very important. We are exporters of scams. The only scam that we imported was love, but all the others we export. So let's go hand in hand so we can prevent all the fraudsters. Thank you so much for the invitation, girls, for your association. It was a nice experience. I'd like to thank all of you for your attendance. This topic, we could be talking about it for hours and sharing experiences. Lots of people here have a lot to say, and we are here for you. We are going to be here if you want to talk to us. We are here for you. It's very nice. Thank you. Have a great ending of this fair. Thank you so much.